you evaluate Russ tonight?
I thought he was excellent. I thought he got better as the game went on, man. But I'm not surprised by that, man. It's been a while since he's played some ball, but I thought he settled in, knocked the rust off, man, and distributed the ball around and played well. Hey, Marshall, what's up? Yes, sir. Let me brace myself.
Was that one of your boldest decisions to go with 3?
That's why I'm well compensated. Thank you.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy Monday. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Connor Rogers, Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher. That sound you heard at the top was former NFL wide receiver Brandon Marshall asking Mike Tomlin about the tough decisions. A perfect answer from Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's the same answer for us, too. How we get the controversial decisions, of who to start, who to sit, who to recommend, who to tell you to bench, who to tell you who to trade, to waive, even when sometimes it's wrong. It's why we're well compensated, all of us. I mean, well, not Connor, but Jay and I are, anyway.
That's just you're stumping on Connor Rogers when he's down.
I know.
I think he's actually sticking up for me in a way.
100%.
That's why I was working till 3 a.m. talking about one of the worst teams in football.
You don't understand. No, Connor Rogers is the hardest working man in sports.
Yeah.
I mean, do you understand how he had to go from talking depressing Jets talk to depressing Mets talk?
To be fair, though, the Mets talk is still uplifting. It's a very reflective Mets fan base there. It was.
But they had a chance. They had a chance in a Subway Series and they blew it.
They blew it. They lost to a far superior team.
They came up short.
Yes.
As did the Jets.
Well, the Jets are.
Their seasons both ended the same night, which is very interesting.
Yes, and it was a 3-for-3 because the New York Liberties, their season ended the same night as well, but theirs ended with a celebration, hoisting the trophy. Connor has to do his Liberty podcast after this.
Yes, we finally get to celebrate one.
Yeah.
So tune into that.
Exactly.
I don't have a name for it yet, but we'll get there. You can co-host.
We were one missed Brianna Stewart free throw away from the darkest day in New York sports history.
It's
unbelievable.
Yeah, it really was.
Could have gone south. Would have been one of the great melts.
Yeah, I thought. Well, luckily the Yankees are in there, I suppose. If you're a New York sports fan,
True.
I know that Yankee fans and Mets fans don't mix. But if you were just looking at the overall New York sports scene, you do have one team in the World Series.
Oh, and the Rangers look like a juggernaut.
Yeah,
right. So there's some things that are okay.
For example, and Saquon Barkley, who used to play with the Giants, had a great day.
Looks awesome.
It looks awesome.
Yes.
So it's not all.
There's things to take away.
It's not all. Drew Lock got the game. Anyway, poor.
Well, let's continue with Sunday Night Football then.
The Bills are, are we limited to just New York State or New York City?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if it's New York State, the Bills won.
Yeah. Sabres struggling.
Yes.
We'll hit the Buffalo
New York
Sounds
City. It was a
Liberty
tough
Rough.
day for New York City, and our man Connor Rogers here, doing his best to bring the news to the people.
I'm here. I'm in a
on.
good mood. Everything's okay. And with that, I bring you the Rotoworld Player News. And for all your player news, you can go to NBCSports.com. And, of course, we start with Sunday Night Football, the return of Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback. And we got to hear from Russ after the game on playing well while also being booed pretty early by the home crowd. Take a listen.
I felt like it was playoff baseball. I said out there, it's, in the sense of, I started off 0 for 2, and but felt like, I was going to get hot. I kept telling Coach, hey, I'm going to get hot here. And sure enough, we did. We did a great job. The guys did a tremendous job up front, giving me enough time to make throws. Guys made plays down the field. And everything else. And I think it's just the love of the game. I played so many games, and that every game's different. Every game has its own story. And every game has different moments in it. And you catch the wave, and once you find it, you don't let go.
Yeah. So Russell Wilson heads into Monday Night Football as the #1 quarterback in fantasy football.
Not a great week.
Because of course he does. I mean, it's Russell Wilson, it's Drake Maye, it's Marcus Mariota, all in the top 5. Because of course they are. Patrick Mahomes nowhere to be found on that top 10 list. We'll get to that in a second.
How did Brock Purdy end up 8th? I guess he got the 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was, and it was an overall down week. We also have 4 quarterbacks going tonight. At least 3 of which are very fantasy relevant in Baker and Lamar and Kyler.
What do you think when Russell Wilson was saying to Mike Tomlin after the tough start, like, I'm going to get hot? Do you reckon Mike Tomlin's like, All right, well, you haven't been good in 3 years, Russ. Can you show me it now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he believed in him. I mean, he's just like, look, dude, our other option is Justin Fields. Like, you're staying out there. But listen, that's what I say to Matt Casey, producer of Football Night in America. Like, I'm going to get hot. Yeah, I mean, like, whatever. I know I took the Jets last night on national television. I know they completely embarrassed me, but I'm going to get hot, Matt Casey. I promise. Just stick with me here. Look, he looked. Legitimately, he looked good. Like he did. I don't understand what playoff baseball means in that context. I don't understand that. Like,
what do you mean? He went 0 for 2. He started poorly. He struck out his first 2 at bats, and then he got better and got some hits.
But does it mean like the two? Like
he didn't land the way he wanted to.
But the thing is, with Russell Wilson, it never lands exactly how you want to, and that's kind of the beauty and the tragedy of Russ.
Yeah. Let's steal. Let's curtain.
Yeah.
We're still working on shopping it.
Well, yeah, we'll work. Yes.
We'll workshop it.
It's Monday morning. We'll get there.
We'll get there. But listen, second most passing yards by a Pittsburgh quarterback this season. He was 4 for 5 for 138 yards on deep passes. He made George Pickens a thing. He threw a couple of just beautiful deep balls to George Pickens. It's his second best fantasy game since the start of last season. Connor, you recently, I believe, traded Russell Wilson to the Grape Slappers.
I did.
Do you regret this move now?
Oh, no. No, I'm not buying into Russell Wilson at all.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the Jets' third-string corners and just terribly coached defense really led to just such a. Now, listen, Russ will be fine, but this is an anomaly to me.
With Russ, I get the stat line, looks great, and he gets the win, and there's a blowout win on Sunday Night Football and everything. Like, there were some miraculous catches. One in particular down the right sideline from George Pickens, which is an absolute joke. Pat Frymouth, miraculous catches. Like, I don't think this is going to be replicated. And to your point, there's maybe the perception that the Jets, with the defense they were last year, they're not even close. I think this is a below-average defense at the moment with all their injuries.
Yeah, no DJ Reed, no Michael Carter, 2 of their 3 great corners. And like we said, they're just not a well-coached unit, that they're terrible up front. Not to take away from Russ, who he was good after an awful first quarter.
Yeah. It was like
fantasy relevance, though, I'm not in.
He's not running at all. We know this wants to be a run-heavy scheme. They're not going to get into a lot of shootouts given how good the defense plays as well. And so I do think he's legitimately on the QB2 radar. I think fantasy-wise he's not going to be as good as Justin Fields. But if you're in, say, the League of Assholes, if you're in a 2-quarterback league, a Superflex league, you're looking for bye-week fill-ins, I do think Russell Wilson is potentially usable. Again, I think you've seen his best fantasy game of the season. He's not going to be a top 5 guy for me on a run-heavy team. But the fact of the matter is that I think he makes the entire offense, to the extent you have investments in George Pickens, in Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, in even Pat Freiermuth. I think he elevates all of them just because the passing game is going to be more in rhythm. It's going to be more on schedule, and it's going to be honestly better. Yes, I mean, like early on, like there was that one like bubble screen to Jaylen Warren that like was like a knuckleball in the dirt.
Yeah.
And you're like,
he missed a couple early.
But again, like listen, 33% target share for George Pickens, season highs in fantasy points, average depth of target, and end zone targets. I do think Russell Wilson unlocks George Pickens, and that's to me the biggest takeaway fantasy-wise from his first start last night.
I completely agree. Just the fact that he gives George Pickens' best skill is contested catch scenarios, and Russell Wilson will lob the ball up and give him contested catch opportunities. And we saw Pickens take advantage of that last night, and he looked great doing it. So I'm with you all the way, Matthew, that he elevates Pickens.
The other thing is just to sort of think about here about the Steelers going forward. They play the Giants next week.
Right.
That's not a defense that scares you, certainly not in the secondary. So I think Russell Wilson will be probably in like, a usable, QB2 next week. Then they're on a bye. Then they're at Washington, home to Baltimore. So, the Commanders' defense is playing well. We'll get to them in a second, obviously. But you look at their upcoming schedule, like, you're not scared of the Browns or the Ravens in weeks 12 and 13. I will say this. If you're looking to sort of trade high, I don't mind that just because, and maybe you wait till after the Giants game. But look at the fantasy playoffs there. At Eagles, at Ravens, home to the Chiefs on Christmas Day. That is a brutal fantasy playoff schedule. Those are 3 very good defenses. At least I think the Eagles will get there by week 15, and certainly the Ravens and Chiefs. Those are tough games, especially on the road at Baltimore with potential playoff implications on the line.
Yeah, and for the Steelers, as much as you mentioned, like they're not going to be in shootouts because the defense is so good. And obviously, they're favored against the Giants next week, but then they hit their bye, and I think they're probably only going to be favored in 2 games the rest of the season. Like those 2 Cleveland games. Outside of that, as you're doubling up against Baltimore and Cincinnati, Eagles on the road, Chiefs, like they're going to be dogs and all.
Cincinnati doesn't scare me. You think they'll be dogs to Cincinnati?
Yeah. I think so.
I don't
Still
know.
Joe
I don't know
Burrow.
if I agree about
Still
that.
Joe Burrow.
It's still Joe Burrow, but that defense is brutal.
The Bengals are 2.5-point favorites against the Eagles next week. Like, the market very much respects the Bengals. I get the defense isn't great, but I think it's going to end up being like the 24th best defense as opposed to the catastrophe it's been so far. And it's still Joe Burrow's playing an MVP level.
No, Burrow's great, and Chase and Higgins are healthy. I get that. They're getting production of the run game. And fair enough. Anyway, we can move on. The congratulations to the Steelers. It was nice to see. Season high 21 carries for Najee Harris. Stop me. You've heard this before. The Jets can't stop the run.
Can't tackle. Can't stop the run.
They're brutal. But it was nice to see Jaylen Warren get more involved. I said this on Sunday morning show. I said this last week as well. He should not be available in this many leagues. I said it especially on fantasy football pregame. He is too good. He's going to be more and more a part of what now is going to look like a very functional offense.
Yeah, and he's going to catch the ball, most
Yes,
importantly,
correct.
from Russ. So on the Jets side of things, Rodgers, 276-yard touchdown, 2 interceptions. One was brutal, another one the fault of Garrett Wilson, who caught 5 of 9 targets for 61 yards. Quiet night for Davante Adams being reunited with Rodgers. He only caught 3 of his 9 targets for 30 yards. I mean, this just wasn't a real consistent night for a Jets offense that was shut out in the second half of this game.
They were up 15-6, Connor. They lost 37-15.
They were like minus 650 or something on the live money line, and then it just all collapsed from there. To me, the biggest takeaway, though, is that Breece Hall looked a lot more like Breece Hall from last year in terms of his explosiveness. He's making guys miss. And even in that good game against Buffalo a week ago, I didn't think that he had that same kind of pace. So I think that's the biggest point of optimism, is that he got so used in the receiving game and had that level of speed.
See, that's weird. I mean, listen, the usage is great for Breece Hall. 41 touches, 84% snap rate, 20% target share in the 2 games since Robert Saleh was fired and Nathaniel Hackett was demoted. So you like that as well. He's had at least 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games, but there was that long play where he got caught from behind. I think it was a pass, and he got caught around the 10-yard line. I just felt like
I think that was at the end of running for 57 yards, though, right?
I'm just
the
saying
receiving game. I thought he looked really good as a receiving back,
Yeah.
and it was all in the first half, which is very frustrating.
But it felt like the explosiveness just wasn't there in a way that we've seen previously. I don't
It's
know.
like he's not making the last guy miss.
Yeah, that's sort of like it is.
Yeah.
That maybe
But
the stamina.
It seems like going from 5 yards to 20. He does seem to have that
that
burst
I
of
agree
explosiveness.
with. That I agree with. 9 targets for Davante Adams, and same for Garrett Wilson. They'll get better, offensively, but I don't think he can use Rodgers really anymore. But especially on the road at New England next week might be tough. But Adams and Wilson.
If they lose that game.
Huh?
If they
Can't lose that game.
They're only 6-point favorites or so.
They're 6-point favorites?
Yeah, I think so. That's what I last saw. I'll double check, but it's not.
Interesting.
That would be quite funny.
Drake Maye outduels Aaron Rodgers.
It'd never be more over if they lose that game.
You don't think it's over yet?
Well, I mean, in
Jets?
terms of it going nuclear. Right now, it's just kind of feels dead.
They're 7-point favorites at the Patriots. 2-5, they're still plus 210 to make the playoffs. The season is alive. It's just it feels dead.
At 2-5.
Like an easy schedule.
Big Show, look up the odds of a 2-5 team making the playoffs.
The analytics I saw, which I don't agree with, had them at 47% chance.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah.
I obviously do not agree with that at all. But
well, the market says about 30%.
Plus 210 is.
Yeah, my numbers have it a bit lower than that. But the season is still alive. It won't be if they lose to Drake May next week.
The whole thing gets blown up. Everybody gets fired.
Yeah.
Whoever's left.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to a much more exciting game. The Lions at Minnesota. Jared Goff just continues to hover around being perfect week after week. And this one, 22 of 25 for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. We got to hear from Goff after the game at his efficiency.
Did I do it again? Yeah. Yeah. See, the word perfect's hard. It's perfect completion percentage, but there's still decisions that you can change. I felt like I thought I had a chance at it again. I felt like halfway through the third, I couldn't think of one, and then, of course, right after that, ball gets batted down. But beside the point, we're getting guys open, we're protecting well, and hitting them in stride, and it's just one play after another, trying to focus on each play, one play at a time.
Jared Goff, as you see from Next Gen Stats, was under pressure at a season high in this game. Over half the time of his dropbacks against the Vikings. He finished 10 of 11 for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns under pressure. Goff is averaging a league high 11.6 yards per attempt under pressure this season. To other quarterbacks are, no other quarterback's over 9 right now for Goff. So he's been surgical under pressure.
I think the point of this, the tweet that we just read, if you're listening to this, the point of this is that the knock on Jared Goff for so long was like, listen, he's great in a clean pocket, but if you can get to him, he stinks. And here you go. Like, he's under pressure on over half of his dropbacks. He's playing Brian Flores, who's one of the blitz happiest D coordinators in the NFL. And he was great. You just heard the numbers right there. He was great under pressure. He was great all game. It's now his over the last 3 games, he's averaging 23.7 fantasy points per game. He's now hit at least 280 passing yards in 4 of the last 5 after a slow start, both fantasy-wise and real-life-wise. Yeah. Jared Goff has gotten red hot just in time. Their upcoming schedule: home to Tennessee, at Green Bay. Boy, that's going to be a great game. At Houston, home to Jacksonville. So dome games for 3 of the next 4. Only the game at Lambeau is outdoors. And honestly, like, he's played this well. They're running the ball well. It's a truly balanced offense, Connor, and he's doing this all, honestly, without Sam Laporta. I can't wait till Sam Laporta comes back.
From wherever he is.
Right.
He's out there, but...
Wait, he is? You're kidding me. You mean he's been running routes? He hasn't been injured this whole time?
It's crazy.
Are you sure? The hell? Where are you at, Sam Laporta? But it's unbelievable. Montgomery leaves this game a little bit, comes back, but Jahmyr Gibbs is awesome. Amon-Ra St. Brown has now scored in 4 straight games, multiple red zone targets in 4 or 6 games this season. He is the sun god. He is my former ride or die.
Yeah, 2 things are incredible. One is how much Jared Goff looks like a splitting image of a disheveled Ryan Gosling. Every time I look at him, I just can't shake that out of my head. Secondly is that he just cooks Brian Flores every time they play, which is bizarre because you think of who Jared Goff is and what in theory he should be vulnerable against. It is someone exactly like Brian Flores. I think that Goff, probably his closest facsimile in the league, is Baker Mayfield in a lot of ways, where former number 1 picks fell in hard times and new teams and everything. And the book on both of them, to your point, Matthew, has been that keep him clean, fantastic, under pressure, melts. And he just does not melt for whatever reason against Brian Flores. Though, to be fair, he did kind of throw the game away on that second last drive. It's just that they picked up the fumble. But no, Goff was magnificent. Do you see anything different with Jared Goff this season, or is he just the same guy and having a really good stretch?
No, elite comfort in the offense. I mean, pre-snap, he has you figured out, it feels like, almost every play. And that's a huge credit to Ben Johnson. Yeah. Goff made a lot of strides under McVay, but it felt like he hit a wall at some point where the Rams literally said, we need someone with a higher ceiling. Under Ben Johnson, it just feels like he has all the answers. And Brian Flores, you bring up, Matthew, that he's usually typically the highest blitz rate in the league, but he's also one of the most creative blitzers where they disguise guys, they drop guys back. It's very hard to see things pre-snap. Goff has all the answers right now. He's one of the best stories in the NFL.
And that was always one of the arguments on Goff early on was that, McVay has to get in his ear and talk to him and read the defense for him.
The 20 seconds on the play clock at the line of scrimmage was always the key.
Was always the key with Goff. I think he's a locked-in QB1. You didn't draft him as such. He went in like the QB 15. So if you're able to get him late, you're loving life right now. And they haven't used all their weapons as well. Like Jameson Williams has been quiet. Like we said, literally like Sam Laporta's on milk cartons these days. But he's been getting it done with a run game and Amon-Ra St. Brown and mixing it up. We saw some Khalif Raymond in this game, here and there. But really exciting stuff. I don't know what else to say about Gibbs because you're starting him every week, but it's just, he's now had back-to-back games with at least a 16% target share. So it just feels like Gibbs, who up to this point had sort of been the number 2 to Montgomery's 1 because Montgomery kept getting so many touchdown chances. It was nice to see Jahmyr Gibbs have such a huge day. That 1 touchdown run was just unbelievable as well. So we head into Monday Night Football. You see it there on your screen. He's the number 1 running back in fantasy.
And unlike the quarterback list we showed you, the running backs at the top of this list are household names. I mean, we expected Gibbs to be great this year. Saquon, Brees, even Mixon, you were really high on because of the offense.
For sure.
He's been very, very productive.
Ken Walker has a monster day. We're going to get to all this, but if you went running back heavy early in your draft, like Stupid Dev.
You're reaping the rewards.
Stupid Dev is wiping the floor with all of us in the league of asshols.
Every receiver is hurt.
Yeah, every receiver is hurt. Every receiver, we're going to get to our Sunday Scaries, and it's like all receivers. Stupid Dev, Smart Dev. First place Dev.
Yes.
It's like laughing his ass off at us, Dev.
Yeah, it's like the reverse arc of Harvey Dent. Two-faced. But now he's got his full face and he's smart dev.
Yes, it is. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Another running back,
He's
by the
the number
way.
one asshole in the league at
That's
the
what
moment.
first place
Dev.
means
Yeah,
for
first
you.
place. Yeah, exactly. Congratulations to Dev.
Another running back having a great season so far, and it was great to see him healthy in this game, was Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, 14 carries, 93 yards, touchdown. Jay also gets 3 catches for 23 yards. If Aaron Jones is going to be out there, he's going to be one of the better plays, especially in this offense.
Yeah, certainly looked like his hamstring was fine. I think the key is that Ty Chandler had 2 carries. Like, this is Aaron Jones' backfield exclusively. I think the other thing to note, and it's not a big deal, like, what are you going to do about Justin Jefferson? You're going to start him every single week, obviously. But, again, we haven't seen those just massive volume days where Justin Jefferson's getting, 15 targets like he used to from Kirk Cousins. And the Vikings were down the entire second half, basically. And so I wonder if he's not touchdown dependent, but a lot of his value is being driven by touchdowns at the moment, as opposed to those freakish JJJs that we're accustomed to.
Yeah, still, 7 for 81, you'll take that most days as well, especially, again, as we get to it. So many wide receivers disappointed. Justin Jefferson, who went later in drafts than he should have because people were concerned about Sam Darnold and the quarterback situation. He was on the preseason love list where I was just like, you guys are crazy. He's Justin Jefferson. Doesn't matter who throws him the ball. Like, he's fine. He's going to Monday Night Football as the 4th best wide receiver in fantasy. Back to your point about Aaron Jones very quickly. I just think it's important. Like, yes, he looked healthy. Yes, he's clearly the guy, but he is matchup dependent. The Lions are one of the best run defenses in the NFL. Aaron Jones had 93 rushing yards, and that's the most by a running back against the Lions since 2022. These are the kinds of things that happen when you free Aaron Jones. Hashtag free Aaron Jones. He's now had 100 or more scrimmage yards in 4 of 6 games this season. He gets the Rams next. Tasty matchup there.
Our next game here, guys, the Chiefs at the Niners. And turning back the clock at the running back position, Kareem Hunt just continues to lead this Chiefs backfield. 22 carries. It's funny because he's off the couch, and it's not like everyone else. He gets 12 carries, 14 carries, 22 carries for Kareem Hunt, and even better, he falls into the end zone twice.
He does. It was part of. We had him as a touchdown bet on Fantasy Football pregame. He was on the love list this week as well. And here's the craziest stat of all of them to me. As you sit here and look at this screen of the Chiefs rushing leaders in Week 7 at the 49ers. Kareem Hunt, as you mentioned, was on his couch a month ago, is the only usable Chiefs player in fantasy football. I mean, Travis Kelce goes 4 for 17 in this game. Xavier Worthy, 3 for 19. Juju Smith-Schuster leaves this game very early as that hamstring acted up again. You're still starting Kelce because of the tight end possession, but you don't feel great about it. Like, he's had 2 good games out of 7 this year.
Yeah,
right? I mean, like, or 6. He's had 2 good games out of 6 so far this year, right? I think, like, you don't, like, Mahomes was on the hate list, and despite his heroics, despite even the rushing, right, the 39 yards rushing and the rushing touchdown, he still finishes the week as QB 15 as we head into Monday Night Football, and I suspect that he'll finish the week even lower. I had him at QB 18 as my ranks.
That's where he's going to land.
That's where he's going to land.
You have Baker, Lamar, and Kyler tonight.
And Kyler. I think all 3 are going to be better than QB 15 tonight.
Yeah, I wonder with Mahomes how much differently we feel about him if, 1, he connects on that wide open deep ball to Xavier Worthy yesterday, which would have been a 60-yard touchdown or something, and then 2, his 2 deep balls to Worthy against the Saints, Paulson and Deebo committed pass interference on both of them. One got called, the other didn't. Like, if he's completing those passes, and look, he's had 3 picks his past 2 games. None of them were his fault. 2 of them were tip balls, and the other, the receiver fell over. So I get it with Mahomes. Like, he doesn't have top 5 quarterback ceiling or anything like that, but he's been better than what he has produced statistically.
Which is fair,
Right.
but, like, how much better? He's on the season, Jay. He's QB 21.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had 0 games with 17 or more fantasy points. So you want to tell me, like, hey, honestly, a couple of plays go his way, he's better than QB 21.
it's like QB 14
okay,
or something.
Right, but
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah.
He was drafted as QB 3.
Yeah, no,
right.
that's
He's
cool.
got more interceptions this year than touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Again, and he's brilliant. I get it. Like, he willed that team to win. You know what I mean? I'm getting a free dinner from Jay Croucher thanks to Patrick Mahomes.
Well, if you missed it.
Yeah, I brought receipts.
Yeah, we have the receipts. So take a listen on the guy's bet from last week.
You sit here and say, like, they don't look good. They're 5-0.
Yeah,
They're 5-0 off the bye.
They have a really good defense. They have a great interior offensive line, and they have Patrick Mahomes still. So that's really all that matters. I do think the Niners will win this game, though. They're 1.5-point favorites. I just think as well, like 10 days as well.
I say the Kansas City Chiefs win this game.
We'll wager dinner.
Done and done.
You know what? You can have 1.5 points too.
Oh, fantastic.
Feeling generous.
Where are you guys going to go? The cafeteria of NBC? You got to set those stipulations next time. Croucher can pull the rug out from under you.
What are you talking about? We're going to Applebee's, obviously.
I'm
We're going to
setting it up for you.
Applebe's. Riblets for everyone. I'm gonna go to the bar and I'm gonna be a big spender. I'm like, round on me.
Zombies for everyone?
Zombies for everyone. Riblets for everyone. 1,00000%.
Do you think the bet should be void? Because I thought I was wagering on Brock Purdy, not Jake Locker, as my quarterback. So I don't know what the hell happened there.
No, I didn't even need the 1.5 points. I'll give them back to you if you want. And,
Times 10.
I mean, dude, Andy Reid is now, I believe, 22-4 off the bye in his career. Again, death taxes, and you bet on Andy Reid.
It's the best money in sports betting.
It's 100%. If you ever decide to bet on sports professionally, that's a stat you should know.
Think about
You
that.
should write that down. You should think about that.
Boy,
You should really look at that.
I don't know what happened to San Francisco. Well, I guess they lost all their receivers and Brock Purdy had a meltdown, is what happened.
Which is wildly concerning because help's not on the way right
Yes.
now.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a takeaway from Kansas City other than, again, I think other than Kelsey and I guess Kareem Hunt, that's the only startable players in fantasy. And Kelsey, you don't even feel great about it because, Noah Gray outproduced him in this one. But and we'll see what happens with Juju, I suppose. Other side of the ball, let's talk about the Niners here as well. So Brandon Aiyuk left the second quarter with a knee injury. Kyle Shanahan from the podium after the game saying that they fear it's an ACL. It looked bad.
Yeah, we could actually listen. Kyle
sure.
actually
have that?
expanded a little bit on it, so listen in on Shanahan.
Yeah.
On
I should
Aiyuk's
really
injury.
attend the pre-show meetings. Go ahead.
Injuries from the game. Deebo had an illness today, tried to go, couldn't do it, never returned. And Brandon Aiyuk had a knee. We're worried it's an ACL. Not confirmed yet, but we'll find out for sure tomorrow. Just doing the tests and everything with our hands and with the trainers and stuff, all that. So that's what we fear. That's what it looks like. But we've been wrong before, so praying that we are.
Tough times in San Francisco right now. They're a team that these are the fantasy relevant injuries, but this team has been battered throughout the 53-man roster since the summer.
Yeah, they have been. It's two things here. First off, we talked about this in the preseason that, and Jay, I think you made this point, but last year they were one of the older teams in the NFL. They obviously still are in terms of the total age of their roster. And they got really lucky last year for the majority of the season with injuries. Obviously the Super Bowl is a different story, but for the most part, they stayed relatively healthy. And this year they just haven't, right? Obviously starting with McCaffrey and Aiyuk and Deebo. Kittle missed a little bit of time. They're banged up on defense as well. They've just, they have not, they haven't gotten lucky with the health. They've had some tough things in terms of, and Trent Williams is holding out and Brandon Aiyuk holds out and all these things. Having said all that, at some point, right, you could sit here and say, they lost a bunch of their star players, but the Chiefs lost Isaiah Pacheco. They lost Rashee Rice. The Chiefs have also had major stars to injuries.
Hollywood Brown hasn't even played.
Hollywood Brown hadn't even played this year. They're starting a guy that literally they signed off the street a month ago at running back, and they're undefeated. Again, you can say, well, Mahomes isn't hurt, and they, I don't know, and you can argue that the Niners' injuries are worse. Okay, fine. But, the Chiefs didn't lose to Arizona.
Right. The Chiefs haven't had the letdown game that really, if they had one, you'd be like, I get it. They're due for one.
Yeah. We had this argument last night on the Football Night in America podcast, and do the 49ers still win the division?
I would take the field over the 49ers. Yeah. The 49ers can still be the most likely team to win it, but you take the field. I have them a 50-50 chance to make the playoffs or not. They're playing Dallas on Sunday Night Football next week. Dallas have a better record than the 49ers at the moment. Dallas are 3-3, the Niners are 3-4. So, look, it's going to get better in theory for San Francisco because Christian McCaffrey will come back at some point, presumably. But at the moment, they're just...
By the way, I think he comes back for Sunday Night Football.
Really?
That's my prediction. I'm making this prediction as well. I think Christian McCaffrey plays Sunday Night Football right here on NBC and Peacock. That's my prediction. There you go. I'm saying that. I'm calling that. Calling my shot.
Might be season on the line for the Niners in that one.
All right.
Might go to 3-5.
I'm calling my shot. CMC plays Sunday night. Plays this Sunday night. It's a must-win. It is their season. They can't go to 3-5.
Yeah.
They can't go to 3. Seattle looks good. They can't go to 3-5.
Yeah, they're feisty, Seattle, with a coach that's got a lot of energy around that team right now.
1,000%. By the way, and this is also, I think they lost this game a little bit because of karma. They told us in the preseason that Christian McCaffrey was fine. He's not going to play now until week 8, I think. We'll see if I'm right about that. And then also, they told us, Deebo's fine. He was an ill, but he's fine.
Burned a lot of people yesterday.
Burned a lot of people.
The karma bus was out in full force.
1,000%.
Texans-Packers, a great game, right down to the wire by new Packers kicker Brandon McManus. But the story in this one, of course, Jordan Love completes 24-33 for 220 yards. The 3 touchdowns are the key, 2 picks. Jordan Love is really leaning into this Favrean-type play.
Wasn't Dontavian Wicks supposed to be out for like a month? Wait.
You said week to week, and in theory, he missed 6 days because no one played.
They've had a very strange year with their skill guys. The Christian Watson ankle.
Jordan Love leads the league in passing touchdowns.
Yes.
He missed 2 games.
Well,
he's also he's thrown 8 interceptions as well.
You don't care.
Yeah, he's just heaving it downfield. I mean, this is how LaFleur, I think, in a way, wants to play, where it is getting yards on the ground and then just flinging it deep. And it's working at the moment. You'd like some of the interceptions to go away, but Jordan Love, like, this offense is super explosive. It is a little bit difficult to define roles week to week, but you want shares of the Green Bay offense.
He's the 3rd best quarterback in fantasy on a points per game basis so far this season, even when he's missed the 2 games. To your point, no one has more touchdown passes than him. He's missed 2 games. So Jordan Love, by the way, you love their upcoming schedule at Jacksonville, home to Detroit, which should be a bit of a shootout. Then a bye at Chicago, so there'll be 2 weeks in there that, aren't. But, yeah, I agree with you. You want as much a part of this Packers offense as possible. It's a little tough on the wide receivers, but maybe you just sort of feel like when you see the state of the wide receiver position, like, okay, sure, you didn't get much out of Jayden Reed yesterday, but whatever. Like, if you're just starting him, like, you also didn't get anything out of Aiyuk or Deebo or Tyreek Hill, and we'll get into all those guys.
Josh Downs.
Yeah, exactly. So Romeo Doubs, 30% target share, which was a team high. He's now had back-to-back games at 17 points. They do look for him when they get in close. Watson's back out there as well. Better days ahead for Jayden Reed, and nice game from Dontavian Wicks as well. Again, they're scoring at a high rate. Josh Jacobs gets in the end zone on his first receiving touchdown. Friend of the podcast, Josh Jacobs. So good to see there as well.
Jay, on the Texans side of things, Joe Mixon with the big day, 25 carries. Bobby Slowick special right there, 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. C.J. Stroud right now sitting at QB 24 after 5.3 points.
Yeah, I know Bobby Slowick has become this kind of hallowed figure. Like, he just runs the ball too much. I'm sorry. Like, he did it all last season. He's doing it again this season. The fact that they had 33 rushing attempts versus 21 pass attempts. And then, by the way, the one time they should have run the ball at the end of the game, they passed it and stopped the clock, which helped Green Bay immensely. So I thought they just butchered this game. Fantasy-wise, it's great news for Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's going to be a top 5-6 running back the rest of the way. Receiving-wise, I don't think there's anything really to be learnt outside of, Tank Dell puts up a goose egg. And then Stephon Diggs does not much. Dalton Schultz is the leading receiver on the team with 1 catch for 28 yards. I think, is C.J. Stroud a must start week to week?
No, he isn't. He was on the preseason hate list. I will say this, though. They're home to Indy next week. I think, the Texans get back on track against the Colts next week as well. Look, I hear you. I'll just say this, though. They needed a last-second field goal from Brandon McManus, who was signed on Wednesday to win this game. The Packers did. The Packers have a really good defense, and the Texans went in there and almost won. They were getting it going on the ground game. That they had a chance to win at the end. So I don't know. Bad fantasy day for C.J. Stroud. Tough matchup. I think the Texans get back on track next week against the Colts. I'm not really to panic yet. Tank Dell is another conversation.
I was going to say.
Tank Dell's no longer a must-start.
I would say you can't start him anymore.
No.
Right? Unless you're in a bye-week disaster scenario.
No, Tank Dell is sadly no longer a thing. It's Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, and then C.J. Stroud, I think, is matchup dependent at this point.
Last week, Dell did get 9 targets, goes 757 on a touchdown.
Yeah, it's his only good game. It's his only good game this year.
But there's only been 2 games without Nico Collins, and he was really good in one of them, and then did absolutely nothing in another when they never threw the ball. I wouldn't give up entirely on Tank Dell yet. I still believe in what he did last
But again, he's 1 for 2 in games without Nico Collins, and Nico Collins is coming back here in the next week or two.
You got 2 more games without him. So you start him for those 2, and then he's on the back burner.
I do think he'll be better against the Colts. I think they'll all be better against the Colts at home. For sure.
Our last game, Seahawks-Falcons. You mentioned earlier, Matthew, big day for Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
It's not just the 14 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, but also 2 catches. One of them was a touchdown. Ken Walker continues to have a great fantasy season.
And it's interesting because there was concern coming into the game, would he be active? Like he went from, no injury designation to questionable. They elevated a couple of guys from the practice squad, but ultimately turns out it's his birthday. And he'll score if he wants to. This is actually what he did. he's been a big part. He's now, for the season, he's the second best running back in fantasy. He's had at least 20 fantasy points in 3 or 4 years. He's part of that, that running back explosion we talked about. But what's really impressive about Ken Walker is that he's truly become a 3-down back. You mentioned the receiving touchdown here. 40% of his points this year have come in the passing game, and which is great given how much Geno Smith and the Seahawks offense likes to pass.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the one issue in terms of projecting the Seahawks offense going forward, the Falcons defense just isn't very good at the moment. They have no pass rush whatsoever. I don't understand how the defense can be so bad in the secondary when you have AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons out there. I don't know if it's a scheme thing or whatever. Giving up that touchdown at the end to DK Metcalf at the end of the half is an atrocity. Like, you can't do that.
Right.
Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
So I think it was just a bit of a mess all of around, but it's encouraging that Geno is so good. DK Metcalf, it doesn't seem like it's so serious. On the other side of the ball, Bijan Robinson did whatever he wanted, looked great, and that was the Bijan that we were expecting preseason. Yeah. Again, though, I just worry that the Seahawks' rush defense is terrible, and how much to really read into that, and how much that is going to be predictive going forward.
Yeah, I mean, but the volume is there and the talent is there, right? 24 touches. He's had at least 18 touches in 5 of 7 games this season. I think we just have to not worry about Tyler Algier. Because, again, if you tell me Bijan Robinson's getting 18 touches, and he's gotten that in every game except for 2 this entire year, like, okay, great. I'll sign up right now for 18 touches from Bijan Robinson every week because I believe in his talent and the overall efficiency of this offense. He's had 3 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging almost 25 fantasy points per game. And friend of the podcast, Detective Drake London, did not do a bird up after he got into the end zone, but he did score. It's his 3rd straight week with a score. He now has almost 50% of the Falcons' red zone targets. He's playing very, very well. Kyle Pitts, whatever. We can drop Ray McLeod, though. That's no longer going to be a thing.
I don't think Kirk Cousins is must start by any means either.
No, I don't think so either. Tough day at the office for Lockett and JSN. As great as Walker was and Metcalf was, it's like I think JSN actually had more passing yards than receiving yards.
He did. Yeah, he had 35 yards through the air. It's a suspect ball to throw up, but DK Metcalf did come down with it. And then, 3 receptions for 9 yards on 6 targets. Just hasn't happened for JSN this year.
Yeah,
it's kind of baffling because he's out there a ton. He's getting targeted.
Yeah, it's very upsetting to me. Cost me a win against you. It's, I'm going to beat producer Steven despite JSN's poor performance.
Some injuries we're tracking out of the weekend. Jayden Daniels, of course, with the ribs injury. The good news is, Matthew, I mean, the Commanders were running away with that game at a wild pace, so Daniels wasn't going to come back in.
No, and Mike Florio said on Football Night in America yesterday that he spoke with a team source with the Commanders, and they asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about Jayden Daniels? And the source said 3 or 4.
Okay.
So
I'd
you'd rather be 1, but I will tell you when he went down, I thought, oh God, is that a knee? I really thought was it an ACL? Was it an MCL? Something like that. It's a rib. And not that ribs aren't pain, but you can wear a flak jacket. Ribs are not season ending for a quarterback.
No.
Deshaun Watson out for the season with the Achilles. That is per Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. Aidan O'Connell will miss 4 to 6 weeks with the thumb injury. We talked about Aiyuk. Shanahan hinted at it could be an ACL. DK Metcalf, things are looking more positive there considering he was carted off. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is now the backup to Deshaun Watson, left the game with a finger injury. We'll keep an eye on that one as well. Curtis Samuel with the shoulder. Juju Smith-Schuster left the game with the hamstring injury. Pop Douglas came into the game sick, left the game sick. Deebo Samuel came into the game sick, never really played much in the game at all. So a lot of things that are short-term and a couple on here that are long-term that we will keep you updated on throughout the week.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson is definitely out for the year, and it does unfortunately look like it's trending that way for Brandon Aiyuk.
Taking our first break. When we're back, we got Weekend Warriors and our Sunday Scaries right after this.
Are you at all surprised by the vitriol? I mean, they're burning your jersey in the parking lot.
That was crazy. I mean, I've seen my jersey get burned before over on social media, but the timing of it, I'm locked in. I'm listening to my music. And I see the fans, and all I see is fans just pointing, and I look, I'm like, what are they pointing at? And I see smoke, and I'm just like, my jersey getting burnt. So, that was definitely different. I don't know if I ever experienced anything like that in my life, and, hopefully I don't experience that again. But in that moment, I was ready for 3rd and 1. Let's just say that.
Weekend Warriors, that was Saquon Barkley. Just destroyed his former team.
Yeah.
Ripped the heart out of his
Absolutely.
former fan base, and good for him.
Good for him, 100%. I've interviewed Saquon a few times. He's an easy guy to like,
awesome.
Easy guy to root for. Everyone loves Saquon.
It's not Saquon's fault. The Giants really had no interest in ever keeping him.
It is not. It is absolutely not Saquon's fault. And by the way, there are times when I've come into NBC Sports and I see somebody burning my jersey as well, and I'm just like, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to predict my ass off. You watch. You watch. So I get it. I understand the motivation there for Saquon Barkley. 176 rushing yards, catches 2 balls for 11 yards, had a season-high 21% target share. That was exciting. One of the concerns coming into the year was, would Saquon be involved in the passing game because Jalen Hurts doesn't like to throw that much. Now, he didn't throw it all for this game, so I mean, 21% target share. He got 3 targets, he caught 2 balls. But still, again, I mean, the fact that 2 receptions was worth, Jalen Hurts just didn't run that much, but second most rushing yards by a player in a game against his former team. Third different game with 25 or more fantasy points. Saquon is back after a tough week last week again. Just awesome to see. He's the number 2 running back in fantasy heading in to Monday Night Football.
Out in London, great day for the Jags offense, Jay. Tank Bigsby, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brian Thomas Jr. caught all 5 of his targets, 89 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I suspect there's a very good chance this is Tank Bigsby's backfield.
It should be.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Travis Etienne and him coming back, but certainly you would expect that Bigsby has at least owned the largest share of the backfield with that performance. Brian Thomas is 5th in the NFL in receiving yards, and for all the bad vibes and pessimism around the Jags, they're 1 game behind the Niners in the standings. They got the same record as the Jets, and then they have a massive couple of weeks coming up. But look, all the underlying stuff on the Jags has never been as bad as you would suspect. So there is a chance this is going to be a competitive team going forward, and Tank Bigsby and Brian Thomas Jr. are going to be a big part of that on offense.
On the other side of this one, Matthew, Drake Maye, good fantasy day for the young quarterback, 276 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also runs a little bit.
Yeah, since he became the starter in Week 6, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. He's now got 5 passing touchdowns in his last 2 games. He's got almost 60 rushing yards in his 2 games, to your point about, and we talked about this when he became the starter. He does things that you want from your fantasy quarterback. He's willing to chuck it deep, and he gets you points with his legs as well. So I think he's certainly a very viable QB2, and he's bordering on QB1 usefulness as well. Now we'll see how he does at home against the Jets this week, as you mentioned, but getting production from Hunter Henry, hopefully Pop Douglas gets healthier as well, but he was spreading it around, and, again, it's the Jaguars, but still, he did what you're supposed to do against the Jaguars, put up fantasy points.
Bad vibes around the Browns, but a good day for David Njoku. Jay catches 10 of 14 targets, 76 yards and a touchdown, which in this tight end fantasy landscape, that's gold.
Yeah, it's elite production. And look, David Njoku, who hasn't had a great year and was injured at the start, he is the number 1 pass-catching weapon on an NFL team, and that counts for a great deal. He's the number 1 tight end this week going into Monday Night Football. And with Deshaun Watson not part of the picture anymore, I think that David Njoku's upside only increases, whether that's Jameis Winston at quarterback or DTR. So David Njoku, again, in this landscape, is probably going to be a must-start tight end.
He should get a massive target share here. I don't know, for those of you that were not watching fantasy football pregame, we showed this photo. That was David Njoku's entrance, and I was just like, yeah, that guy's going for 102 touchdowns. Almost came close to it as well. Just 10 for 79 and a touchdown. Look, you don't wear that without knowing you're going off. Look at that. Look at that. What a beautiful, magnificent human being.
Yeah.
God bless.
And in this
what I said, Connor, was I'm not gay, but if I was, I would go there.
That's the type of outfit you're a fan of? All right.
He looked awesome. By the way, speaking of the Browns, Nick Chubb.
Welcome back, Nick
makes
Chubb.
his return. He drinks for free. He gets into the end zone. Great to see. There were only 16 carries for the Browns. They got down in this game, but Nick Chubb handled 11 of them, including all 3 goal-to-go rushing attempts as well. Wasn't particularly efficient, but I think he'll get better. Honestly, they'll be better with a different quarterback under center.
They will be. And I was surprised, he had 10 carries in the first half. They were giving it to him. And then it seemed like that was the plan, and then he only got 1 carry in the second half. But Nick Chubb, he might be ramped up to a full workload quicker than people expect.
Our last weekend warrior, Brock Bowers, feels like he's on this list every week, Matthew. He catches 10 of 14 targets for 19 yards.
Yeah, he's like a young David Njoku out there. Let's see him show up in chaps and nothing else, right? But look, 40% target share in Week 7. He led all tight ends with that. Third straight game now with at least 16 fantasy points for Brock Bowers. Third game this season with over 90 receiving yards. No Jacoby Myers in this game, but still, even when Jacoby Myers comes back, and we saw the injury to AOC, but much of Bowers' production this year has been with Gardner Minshew under center. He remains the tight end 1. Njoku's going to challenge him, but if I was redrafting again today, Bowers is still my number 1 tight end, still a top 10 pick.
We move over to the Sunday Scaries, headlined by Anthony Richardson here, Jay. Just cannot throw the ball right now. He only had 129 yards passing because he completed 10 passes. Runs for 56 yards, but it's just not looking good for Richardson.
There's a 48.5% completion percentage on the season and a passer rating of 60. It's just not getting better at this point. And I understand that he's young and you have to play him. In theory, he should get better, but we haven't seen anything to believe that improvement is right around the corner. This might be more of a next year type of thing for Anthony Richardson if he's going to flourish in the NFL.
Well, and what he's doing is, in addition to struggling, he's QB 18 as we head into Monday Night Football. He's also killing the fantasy value of anyone around him. I mean, I know Pittman, whatever, but Josh Downs, just did nothing. It's a long list. I mean, we're going to get into some of these other Sunday Scaries, but again, zeros from Deebo, from Jordan Whittington, who we were told were fine, right? Josh Downs had a bad game. Christian Kirk does nothing. We talked about the zero from Tank Dell. It's just a bad day for wide receivers all around. And, A lot
of goose eggs. Going back to Cortland Sutton on Thursday Night Football at 0 points.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people tweeted me screenshots of their team that just look
Zeros.
at all these zeros from players that were legitimately starting.
And by the way, for the stars, it wasn't much better. Listen to this. Tyreek Hill, 1 catch, 8 yards. Devontae Smith, he had 1 catch for -2 yards. Malik Neighbors caught 4 passes for 41 yards. Deontay Johnson caught 1 pass for 17 yards.
All those guys were top 20 plays. We talked on Fantasy Football pregame that the receiving prop for Tyreek Hill was in the 50s. We're like, that's crazy. How could Tyreek Hill have a receiving prop in the 50s? This is a guy who routinely got it in the 80s and 90s. And turns out the under was the correct bet.
Unbelievable. It's insane they can't scheme more touches for Tyreek Hill. I just don't understand.
He was blocking on a screen to Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, I don't get it whatsoever. And also, quietly, Devontae Smith, this hasn't been talked about as much because they're 4-2. It doesn't feel like Jalen Hurts is doing much through the air outside of throwing go balls to A.J. Brown at the moment.
No, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, they found success by just giving it to Saquon Barkley over and over again. I think that's going to be the path going forward. So all these guys, with the exception of Malik Neighbors, I think will be fine. But you have to be nervous about Tyreek Hill, although there's a chance Tua comes back this week.
He'll be back.
Thank goodness. Devontae Smith, I'm with you, more of a risky wide receiver 3 as the Eagles go more run heavy. And Deontay Johnson, they're at Denver this week. Andy Dalton, they put Bryce Young in. My Commanders don't have a good defense, and they shut them down.
Will be back.
Yeah, exactly. So Deontay Johnson probably on the hate list this week as well. So unfortunately, I wish I could tell you better days are ahead, but I don't know that they are. But hopefully if Tua comes back, maybe Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle get back to fantasy relevance.
Well, in some better news, this year marks the first season that Applebee's is the official grill and bar sponsor of the NFL. And to help celebrate, Applebee's just kicked off its new Applebee's Pick 6 Mondays. This football season, a Pick 6 during any NFL Sunday game will unlock 6 free boneless wings the next day on Monday at Applebee's for both dine-in and to go. And on behalf of Barry's Commanders, we got one. Head to your local Applebee's today and be sure to say your friends at the happy hour sent you.
Dante Fowler.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Oh, I know. Well, it was thrown right to him. Yeah. Andy Dalton hit him in the numbers.
We're taking one more break. When we're back, last
Wings
call.
For everyone.
We got our best bets for Monday Night Football.
Hail the Commanders, hail victory.
DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. It's time for last call. Let's take a look at the most bet Monday Night Football props on DraftKings for this doubleheader. Lamar Jackson rushing 40+, Chris Godwin receiving yards 50+. Those are alt lines. Deion Henley sacks under a quarter sack is minus 750. I have no idea where the public unearthed that.
Yeah.
Roquan Smith sacks under a quarter sack, minus 750. Zay Flowers receiving yards 100+, plus 450. Jay, what do you got for us?
So weird to take an under on a sack at minus 750.
Yeah, that's
on a quarter of a sack.
On a quarter of a sack. So if they kind of roll in to help
Right,
out,
exactly. If
you're
this is,
doomed.
they get a paw on there and just, anyway, whatever.
Oh, boy.
Not my coin.
All right, my best bet for
Yes,
tonight. That's my favorite kind of archetype of bet. The quarterback low over rushing total. Baker Mayfield over 14.5 rushing yards. Last year, Baker Mayfield for the whole season had 163 rushing yards. This year already through 6 games, he has 136. I think that is a feature of this Liam Cohen offense. He's just dropping back more. He's been given license to run more. He's hit the over in 4 out of 6 games, averaging 23 rushing yards per game. He's at 42 and 29 the past 2 weeks against the Ravens. Great run defense. I think he will be dropping back a lot, and he goes over.
What about you, Matthew?
I like it. I'm going to go Dobby. Your new acquisition,
new
J.K. Dobbins. I say he goes over 78.5 rushing yards. First off, he's been over this number in 3 of 5 games so far this year. Cardinals have allowed 80 or more rushing yards to a running back in 4 of 6 games. They allow the second most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. No Gus Edwards in this game as well, and so wanted to keep Kyler Murray in that offense off the field. I expect Jim Harbaugh once again to go to a very run-heavy script all around J.K. Dobbins. Give me the over on his rushing yards tonight.
I'm looking at it over as well. Baker Mayfield over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Listen, Baker's already thrown 15 touchdowns. The Ravens are allowing the 3rd most points, fantasy points to quarterbacks all season. I thought this would be bumped up to 2.5. It's 1.5 at -120. I think Baker can get to 3 tonight if you want to take an alt line and get a little crazy.
No, we saw it earlier in the show. Like him and Jordan Love are tied for the NFL lead in touchdown passes, and we know Baltimore is going to score on the Bucs.
As you see here, this is Matthew's rankings for the first game, Ravens-Bucs. A lot of fantasy-relevant players in this one, Matthew.
For sure. Cade Otton, by the way, if you're desperate at tight end, he's been a top 10 tight end over the last couple of weeks as well. I want no part of the running backs here. You see Irving, White, both ranked there. Sean Tucker should get some run as well. Ideally, you're avoiding it, and we get some looks at it. Mike Evans supposedly is a little bit banged up, but I think he goes, and I think he has a nice game. Both him and Godwin should be just fine for the Buccaneers. Zay Flowers has been nothing short of terrific in every game that's competitive, which will be tonight.
Indeed.
As we look at the other matchup here, Cardinals, Chargers, Jay, maybe not the same firepower, but a lot of people are going to be leaning on Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison tonight for sure.
I think the most interesting thing here is that I think Lad McConkey is flex viable, just being the number 1 weapon in the passing game for Justin Herbert. So I think you can start Lad McConkey in deeper leagues.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
On the Chargers side of the ball. Cardinals side of the ball, we expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to be back. Hopefully he gets going a little bit. Kyler Murray, ride or die. I desperately need you. I need you to survive our guillotine league that we're doing. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. It's Victory Monday, which I'm representing 5 here for Jay and Connor. I'm Matthew. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.